All right, what's going on? Consciouztv, it is your favorite commentator, CTV. Welcome to another video on the Consciouztv platform. We are here to get into, as Ray says, round two. Okay. This is kind of a spin-off from previous live. We did a little review of this week's interesting episode, interesting week over on Consciouztv, who has a rotating guest panel. They touched on the transgender bathroom controversy. So we're going to be giving our little one. I'm going to be unpacking that a little bit more because I was thinking about it after I had got off the live, and some more thoughts just came to my mind about the subject. And I'm also interested in dropping the link if any of you guys are interested in coming up and also like giving y'all's views and perspectives on the topic. This is not a foreign topic over here on this platform. You guys know we oftentimes speak about sexuality and gender and, you know, society and just Black women, Black men, and sociology and psychology and, you know, pale supremacy and all those things, all right? So before we get into the topic at hand, go ahead and thumbs up this video until it is absolutely stuck. You guys know that thumbing up helps with YouTube's algorithm, but more importantly, it triggers up YouTube's notification bell. So when you are literally pressing the thumbs up button, you are knocking on the digital door of another Conscious crew member and telling them to get their arses into the sanctuary. Now, most of the Conscious crew are probably asleep at 4:35 a.m. somewhere in the astral plane, dreaming of all of their debt and bills being paid down to a zero balance. All right, but nonetheless, we're going to attempt to wake those motherfuckers up with the thumbs up button. All right, get that phone vibrating and let them know that the Kang is indeed Kang. Also, shout out to all other new subbies. Please make sure that you guys have all of your notification bells set to all. And last but not least, please share the stream out to wherever it is you have digital community at, whether that be your Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, the dark side of Twitter, Tumblr, or your personal OF. I don't really give no damn where you lay the link. Just let the force know that we're loud, live, and in color. And with no further ado, let's go ahead, all right, and push on through.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, what's going on, y'all? I know it's late, honey. It's 10 a.m. on Ray's side of the world. It is 4 a.m. in my time zone, and I'm sure either people in the chat are an hour behind, hour ahead, somewhere in the mix. Girl, I'm wide open. I'm trying to stay up because I want to make it to the post office. Y'all guys know that it's Larry's birthday. His birthday is coming up, so I had got him some gifts that I'm gonna ship off in the mail tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and do it first thing in the morning, get it over with, and hopefully he can get it on the day thereof. Now we are here to get into this discussion, child. So let's talk a little bit about it. All right, you guys know, as covered on TGIF, that the state of Utah joins. Let me go ahead and turn off this music. Let me turn this down a little bit. Hold on. And thumbs up. All right, there we go. All right, according to NBCnews.com, Utah joins 10 other states in regulating bathroom access for transgender people. Utah became the latest state to regulate bathroom access for transgender people after Republican Governor Spencer Cox signed a law Tuesday that requires people to use bathrooms and locker rooms in public schools and government-owned buildings that match their sex assigned at birth. Under the legislation, transgender people can defend themselves against complaints by proving they had gender-affirming surgery and changed the sex on their birth certificate. Opponents noted not all states allow people to change their birth certificates and that many trans people don't want to have surgery. The legislation also requires schools to create privacy plans for trans students and others who may not be comfortable using group bathrooms, for instance, by allowing them to use a faculty bathroom, something opponents say may out transgender children. Quote, we want public facilities that are safe and accommodating for everyone, and this bill increases privacy protections for all, Cox said in a statement Tuesday night. At least 10 other states, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Tennessee have passed laws that seek to regulate which bathrooms trans people can use, and 9 states regulate the bathrooms that trans students can use at school. West Virginia's legislature is considering a transgender bathroom bill for students this year. The Utah bill requires any new government buildings to include single occupant bathrooms and asks that the state consider adding more of the bathrooms to increase privacy protections in existing government buildings. It did not provide any funding for such upgrades. The sponsor, Republican Rep. Kara Birkeland, said she was trying to make it illegal for a naked man to be in a bathroom with an 8-year-old girl. She said that situation happened at a public facility in Salt Lake County, and that officials said they couldn't do anything about it because the man said he was trans. Opponents argued the legislation should target the behavior and not transgender residents and visitors. Quote, this bill perpetuates discrimination, needlessly imposes barriers to the everyday needs of people in Utah, and risks harmful and discriminatory enforcement against transgender people, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. The American Civil Liberties Union of Utah said Tuesday in a letter urging the governor to veto the legislation. Quote, all it does is invite scrutiny of people who are transgender or perceived to be transgender when they are lawfully going about their lives, the letter said. Anyone who uses a changing room or locker room that does not match their sex assigned at birth could be charged with trespassing if, quote, the individual enters or remains in the changing room under circumstances which a reasonable person would expect to likely cause affront or alarm to, on, or in the presence of another individual under the legislation. Those who violate the law could also be charged with loitering, lewdness, or voyeurism, depending on their behavior. Opponents said the law would still legally require a trans man who was taking testosterone and who may have grown facial hair to use women's bathrooms and locker rooms. Quote, nobody I know cares if a transgender woman comes into their bathroom, use it for its intended purpose, and walks out, Birkeland said. That is not what this bill is about. This bill passed easily in the Republican-controlled House and Senate on January 26 after a conference committee amended it to clarify that public school students cannot be charged criminally for using a bathroom that matches their gender identity. Equality Utah, a nonprofit organization that advocates for LGBTQ plus rights, advocated for the amendment but still opposed the bill. No lawmakers or members of the public spoke against that part of the bill that allows the state to enforce some federal Title IX provisions that require equal opportunities for male and female athletes in schools, along with equal facilities and equal access to preferred playing and practice time. So that was a mouthful. Good morning, Sharon. Yeah, red states. There's a lot going on here. So I agree with the pushback on this bill being inherently discriminatory because it does not target or penalize behavior. It penalizes the people themselves. This is once again a big part of the issue and why this pushback against trans women in women's spaces and female spaces, locker rooms, bathrooms, trans men in male spaces, male locker rooms, male bathrooms, etc., is a conversation that, or is an issue that can never be without the question of whether transphobia plays a major role in some of the excuses that society has for resisting trans people in the spaces that align with their gender identity and gender expression. Why are we not targeting the behavior? Why aren't we just then regulating the rules of engagement, even when it comes to bathrooms? Because as the article says, you know, if people are using the restroom accordingly to do what restrooms are intended for people to do your big one or your real big two, groom, adjust yourself, freshen up, and haul ass. You know, if the bathroom spaces need to be regulated in terms of establishing some major don'ts and what bathrooms, especially public restrooms, are not intended for, meaning that I can see them regulating, like, you can't just be in a public restroom and be standing in the walkway or be standing at one of the faucets and be like giving your pussy a ball fade. You know, that's not what the damn public restroom is for. Like, you know, you can't be, you know, in a public restroom and standing at, you know, an open faucet and be applying ointment to your nutsack, you know. If there are individual stalls, which there should be in both the men and women's restroom, that would be the space in the public restroom for you to do those very, very, very personal things with your genitals. But that the restroom in and of itself is not just a free-for-all space where all type of genital touching, genital caressing, self-love activities can take place. That also, you can't be in a public restroom and be standing in a open walk space or at a counter butt ass naked. You can't have your titties just wide open in a public restroom unless it's within a stall. Like, if we need to start regulating those things and making certain conduct specific to in a stall, in a urinal, versus out of the stall behavior, in the stall behavior, I can understand regulating that in order to make sure, because there are young people and children who also utilize these spaces, are not also being involuntarily exposed to other people's genitals and other people's bodies, and are not being traumatized by these encounters. And so that also other grown adult people in the space are not having to be that damn up close and personal, with somebody else's up close and damn personal. I think that's a step in the right direction. But what happens when you don't make it about the behavior and you literally start to require trans people to have had gender reassignment surgery and to change their sex on their birth certificate, you get into a very icy hot zone that no longer, once again, make it about the behavior. You're making it about the people, because what that focus inadvertently does is say that trans people without the surgery are criminal in and of themselves and are more liable to commit criminality in SA. Requiring trans people to also dress a certain way becomes discriminatory and hyper policing as well. Because once again, what you're really doing is attempting to comfort the dominant society, who may be uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable is not illegal. Bitch, I'm uncomfortable living alongside pale people in this damn country. I'm uncomfortable with a pale officer pulling me over. Do you see the damn police union allocating only black officers to black people? No. Are there pale officers who commit racially driven offenses against black and brown citizens? Absolutely. Is it a projection for me to project that onto all pale policemen? Sure it is. That's why our black asses are not being accommodated, because the system isn't going to allow us to discriminate against officers to that degree. And there's room for that conversation in terms of us making those distinctions between our own biases coupled with actual issues that are specific to a group or your group or other groups, etc. But us having to definitely be clear and draw the line between our feelings and our perceptions and our fears and our insecurities and the reality of things, but making sure that we treat all people like human beings, which can only happen when we focus on behavior and not who people inherently are. Not making things about their race, not making things about their gender, not making things about their orientation, but making it about the things that those people do regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their orientation. Now, here's the gag. Because let's tackle the first part of this, aesthetics. This bill says, well, you have to have your birth certificate changed and you have to have gender reassignment surgery. So who exactly is going to be policing the bathroom to check for birth certificates and to check for gender reassignment surgeries? I'm curious. I'm also going to jump out on a limb here and go out on a little stretch here and say that if females are in a female restroom, but the state is requiring all trans people can only go into the bathrooms that align with their gender if they've had gender reassignment surgery and changed their sex on their birth certificate, then you're going to have trans people who have not had the surgery and who have not changed that on their birth certificate, who are going to be forced to use the restrooms that are not aligned with their gender, but aligned with their sex. Now, that's going to be a very interesting issue, because could you imagine how a trans woman is going to feel coming into the men's restroom with titties, hair, skirts, weave? You know, her gender identity and her gender expression is woman. And the interesting dynamics that will create socially. Or could you imagine females in the female restroom having a trans men come into that same space who have full-on beards, who present in their gender expression male, man, etc. I don't think females are going to be any more comfortable. But you guys chime in on that. That they're going to be any more comfortable with a trans man in their space than they would a biological male. Because these trans men are going to be forced to use the female restroom because they haven't had gender reassignment surgery and they haven't changed their birth on their certificate, but they still present masculine. They take hormones. They have had the hair and facial transplants. They've had the facial surgeries. They've had things done, but they haven't per se had whatever is considered to be the gender reassignment surgery, and they haven't made these changes to their birth certificate. But these trans men still have testosterone pumping through their veins because they take testosterone shots, the same testosterone that's in biological men. I cannot imagine that a biological female is going to be any more comfortable at the faucet touching up her makeup with a trans man right next to her touching up his damn beard. So I really don't think that it resolves any fucking issue. If anything, once again, it makes the issues worse, because also, as those in the article push back against and say, you also put trans people who live in a deeply, profoundly transphobic system in a position to be outed just by very way of the bathrooms they're going to. Because in a non-transphobic world and in a non-transphobic world where there's no bathroom, restroom issues, a trans woman would just be able to go into the women's restroom and a trans man would just be able to go do what he does in a men's restroom. But if you're going to have people who are not going to be allowed to use the restrooms that they align with their gender, then having to be awkwardly placed in the restrooms that align with their sex, you're going to put trans people in a situation to be outed before they're comfortable. You put trans people who are a endangered species, who are a minority within a minority within a minority within a minority within a minority, who are literally unalived and experience brutal, unsolicited violence simply because of who they are, not what they do. Not like, oh, a trans woman stole your purse and you whipped her ass to the bone. Or not that, oh, this trans man put his hands on you, so you plunged his face in. But people who are subjected to violence simply because. And now because you want to police and weaponize that. Not because it's in the best interest of everybody. Let's be clear. Because it's in the best interest of the majority. Not the best interest of the minority, but the best interest of the majority. Then you force them into a position to have a conversation with society that they can't even fucking have directly with their own mothers and fathers yet. But you essentially force a trans person to have to fully identify themselves and come completely out of their gender closet because they need to go shit and they can't even do that within the restroom assigned that they align with in their gender because they risk being ticketed or being criminalized as a result. And this is all over a bathroom issue. When what could clear some of these instances in which so-called perverted things occur and manifest can be intentionally targeted. The behavior, the perverted behavior can be targeted rather than the trans people themselves be required to pussy pop in 60 million damn different directions. Because the real undertone and real underbelly is that these people themselves are being seen as criminal inherently. Now, speaking of the stigma that comes with being trans in a transphobic ass system, is I don't understand how dominant society does not understand that they're conflating two different issues. Like, oh, we're concerned for trans people being in our spaces, being in our restaurants, because these people can do this. I don't understand how we actually are forgetting that we are conflating two different issues. That we're literally, our starting base with the issue is that trans people are going to cause harm. And in order for me to feel better about them being in my space, I need them to adjust and I need them to show up, and I need them to look like, talk like, smell like, be like this before I can legitimize their identity, which is just all total bullshit. Because even for people, for females who are concerned, like, well, I'm concerned that a man can just pose as a woman and come into the restroom and essay me. Justified fear in a patriarchy that has been abusive toward women. Completely get it. But I do want us to remember that a man posing as a woman also doesn't allow him to get away with the essay. But we almost speak about the crime as if it's given immunity just because it's committed by some perverted man posing as a transgender woman in order to access the female space, in order to do something wrong and criminal to a female. It's still a crime. It's not a crime just because it's a man claiming to be transgender. Claiming to be transgender, or whether you are transgender, still wouldn't make the crime any less of a criminal offense. So if we're talking about crimes being committed against people, why aren't we making the distinction between trans people and criminals, rather than smashing them into one, rather than making the trans person and the criminal one and the same, if we're talking about crimes being committed? And that's why these type of bills are inherently discriminatory, because they don't make the distinction. What bills like this does is attach crime to a type of people, which in this case are trans people. But criminality can manifest and show up as and in all groups, despite culture, creed, religion, race, gender, etc. You got females in prison, you got males in prison, you got trans people in prison, you have young people in prison. There's no non-criminal people on the planet. Members of every group commit crime and break the law and do so-called wrong. Females commit SA. Males commit SA. You don't see the system treating males as a whole like a bunch of rapists, or women's community or female community as a bunch of rapists. Because we attempt to be a people who, once again, penalize and regulate behavior. So the conversation sounds more non-discriminative when we frame it that way. I'm concerned about criminals is really what the statements should read. Not, I'm concerned about trans people committing SA in spaces that are aligned with their gender identity. Because trans people don't commit crimes. in spaces that are aligned with their gender identity. Criminals do, though. Criminals who happen to be trans, criminals who happen to be pretending to be trans, criminals who happen to be female, criminals who happen to be male. So that's what the concerns and the fears and the language should be encompassing of is the term criminal. I'm concerned about criminals. I am not concerned about trans people. I am not concerned about non-binary people in my spaces. I am not concerned about trans men sharing the bathroom with me. I am not concerned about trans women sharing the locker room or sharing the urinal with me. I'm concerned about criminals. How can we prevent crime? And when we don't frame it that way, and when we don't target it that way, and when we don't make crime the issue, when we don't make criminality the issue, that's when it becomes discriminatory against people's actual humanity. That's when it becomes you being overly police because you happen to be a Black person, not because you happen to be a bad person, but because you happen to be a Black person. This issue is not it's not trigonometry at all. As previously discussed in the last live, this issue between, because it really is a trans women bio women conflict. This is not a thing in men's community. After all, masculine presenting women been rolling with men since the dawn of time. Most men groups at this point for the past 50 decades have included a Cleo from Set It Off. So this issue is mostly it is mostly a trans woman, bio woman conflict. And I personally do believe that it's due to a broken relationship between female community and male community, because females in this system have been subjected to a patriarchal system that has been sexually, governmentally, socially, spiritually, psychologically abusive. And because trans women are evolved from male biology, trans women unfortunately inherit the stigma of being males. And that's the way they're perceived in woman-female spaces, as males. And so the same fear, anxiety, concerns, issues, discomfort, uncomfortability that would be there if it was a full-on biological male presenting man in the space is the same concerns that members of the female community are experiencing having a trans woman in their space, because they see trans women as biological men. And because biological men don't have a great track record of being able to be respectful to women in the privacies thereof, biological women are met with that same distrust when it comes to their trans counterparts. And trans women, unfortunately, are inheriting the stigma of having a male biology, or what was exclusively a male biology at one point. Another issue, as I touched on in the last live stream, that's contributing and compounding the issue and adding insult to injury is the lack of relationship. It is human nature to fear what you don't understand. And what we don't understand are usually the things that we don't have relationship to. So the less relationship and less familiarity and less dealing you have with the topic or subject of people, the more easier it is to be informed by your fears, to be informed by your assumptions, and to be informed by others who are afraid of the very same things that you fear. So most of this system has had the narratives around queer people, intersex people, trans people be narrated by religion. And then all the other little hateful, menacing, urban legend shit that society sprinkles in for the fun of it, that ultimately slander the narrative on queer people. We're abominations, we abuse children, we're hypersexual, just wild, uncivilized, demonic. And when you're not in relationship to said community, you're likely to believe those things because it's what assists you in trying to rationalize these people you don't understand. So you understand them in a fearful context and a hateful context. So between trans women being stigmatized by coming out of males community who have not had the best relationship to women's community who live in a patriarchy, coupled with being a part of a community that still is largely understood. Yeah, we are part of a lot of conversations these days, and we're showing up in spaces as ourselves, but there's still a lot of misunderstanding from dominant society as it relates to LGBT folk and who we are, and this struggle to still have us be seen as humans and to have us be humanized instead of having everything we are be reduced to what we do in the bedroom and our sex lives and our genitals and our gender identities. But as a result of dominant society focusing upon and reducing queer people to their gender identities and gender expressions and their genitals and their sex lives, we've had to then take those things on in stride. We've also had to push back against dominant society as a result. But we've also had to embrace the very things that the dominant society has attempted to make us feel ashamed about, all in the same breath. And we're still fighting that war. As we can see here, 10 states have already regulated and policed public restrooms as it relates to trans, non-binary, intersex people. So if the dominant society, because queer people live in a dominant society, it's not us that's resisting relationship. We're born amongst the dominant society. We kind of have no choice but to be in relationship to dominant society because dominant society rules. Dominant society is everywhere. Dominant society is the nuclear family which you were born in. It's the school system. It's the church system. It's the neighborhood system. It's the workspace. There's no way for queer people to escape dominant society. The work falls on the side of dominant society, who has to open up the space to truly understand and to truly humanize queer people so that all of this fear mongering can stop. Because all this legislation, once again, it's not for queer people. It's not for the safety of queer people. It's not for the safety of minority people. These legislation and laws are largely for the comfortability of accommodating scared ass, pussy ass, hateful, discriminatory ass, narcissistic, dominant society, who literally expects people to bend every which fucking way to accommodate them just because they have the privilege of believing they should be accommodated, and because they oftentimes occupy the positions of power governmentally and societally, to be able to pit and force and demand queer people to be in these submissive positions, to have to, so to speak, pass the brown paper bag test just to fucking piss, just to metaphorically have to pass the brown paper test, the brown paper bag test, just to be able to have a fucking seat somewhere. And I don't understand how other groups, and we always have to go here, right? Because who else we gonna go to, bitch? You know, black people, my people, because, you know, I get to make that statement because I am black. I'm as equal black as I am queer. You can just see my blackness. You have to be made aware of my queerness. But both of those truths are equally truth. One truth is just visible and one truth is just invisible. And I'm equally all of them. All of these intersections are me. My invisible truths that have to be revealed to you, and then the truths you can see with your own nose, that you can see with your own eyes, smell with your own nose. But how is it that black and brown people don't want to live in the same, don't want to be discriminated against because of the color of our skin, don't want to be policed because of the coil and the curl and the texture of our hair, but want queer people to exist in that same discriminatory world? We don't want to live in it as black and brown people, and we will march and we will get bitten up and fight every Doberman pitcher and damn police pit bull and be hit with every baton and lay our lives down to fight that world up off of our necks. But we totally expect queer people to live in that same reality. We expect, though, queer people to exist in that same overly police discriminatory reality. We don't want to live there, bitch. We don't want nothing to do with it. We don't want nothing to do with that world, baby. Don't police my blackness. Don't police my hair texture. Don't police my skin tone. Don't police my culture. Don't police. But we damn sure want it. For LGBT plus folk. We sure want it for their ass. Police the shit out of their motherfucking ass. Make their ass have to change gender assignments. Make them have to motherfucking identify this and that way. Make them have to straighten the fuck up. Make them have to be palatable for our approval. which is going to be second best to our real preference, which is to all out exterminate their ass. But since we can't legislate what we really want to do, which is all out just extinguishing queer people off the face of the earth, second best thing is we're going to have to make these motherfuckers the most palatable, safest versions in our minds that we can, if we're going to have to live with these folk. No, bitch, you don't even get to do that either. This is an as-is purchase. You going to have to accept and get with it in all of our weird-ass glory, baby. You're going to have to sit in the uncomfort and the discomfort of living alongside people you don't understand the language of, you don't understand the dance moves of, you don't understand the lingo of, you don't understand the aesthetics of, until, bitch, you get comfortable. Nope. You don't get to exterminate, and you also don't get to adjust me either, bitch. You don't get to do either. I'm so sorry. Nobody should have to. Not women should have to do it. Not men should have to do it. Not black and brown people should have to do it. And not damn sure queer people should have to do it. And I think it's a shame and it's a scandal that as a black and brown community, we have to have these type of discords with our black and brown queer counterparts, as if we don't understand exactly what it's like to continually be policed and marginalized, to continue to be expected to assimilate and to be palatable and to code switch, because we got other people in positions of power who don't look like us and who ain't comfortable with us until we act more like them rather than act like us. And then our black and brown LGBT queer community has to sit in front of our face and pussy pop and tap dance for our approval, because we don't know better than to play massa to them the way that massa is playing massa to us. And this is where that age-old hurt people. And I know that niggas are hurt, because if there's any sign that black people are hurt and that the black community is filled with a bunch of traumatized, fear-based, ignorant-ass motherfuckers, it's not only based upon how they treat black women, it's not only based upon how they treat black children, but it is damn sure also in how the fuck they treat black LGBT folk. You damn right. Hurt people are hurting people. If the hetero cis black community continues to stand in opposition with black queer folk, you can't convince me that that's well. Because well people want nothing more for other people than wellness. Well people desire wellness for other people. Well people treat other people well. Well people want wellness for all people. You cannot, we as a community, we as the melanated people cannot speak liberation and equality and fairness and then desire that not for queer folk. It's weird. If you're concerned about crime, if you're concerned about crime being committed in locker rooms and crime being committed in bathrooms, then be concerned with crime. Be concerned with criminals. Not concerned with trans people, because criminals commit crime. Sometimes the criminals gonna pretend to be trans. Sometimes the criminals are gonna be trans. Sometimes the criminals are gonna be female. Sometimes the criminals are gonna be males. Sometimes the criminals are gonna be same gender loving. Sometimes the criminals are going to be heterosexual. Sometimes the criminals are going to be the adults. Sometimes the criminals are going to be the teenagers. Sometimes the criminals are going to be the children. Sometimes the criminals are going to be the Christians. Sometimes the criminals are going to be the strangers. Sometimes the criminals are going to be right down the hallway from you as your siblings. Sometimes the criminal is going to be the person you're on the highway with who shoots a gun at your car for cutting them off. Sometimes the criminal is going to be your employer. If you're concerned about crime being committed, be concerned about crime. Be concerned about criminals. But don't conflate and make the crime the people. Criminals gonna commit criminal offenses. That's not a trans issue. That's a criminal issue. That's not a non-binary issue. That's a criminal issue. That's not a same gender loving issue. That's a criminal issue. That's not a heterosexual issue. That's a criminal issue. That's not a male or female issue. That's a criminal issue. If you're going to be concerned about the crimes being committed in the highways and the byways, if you're going to be concerned about crimes being committed in the urinals, then you're talking about criminals. You ain't talking about trans people. If you're talking about men pretending to be trans just to get into women's spaces to commit crimes against females, you're talking about criminals. If you're talking about a trans woman who is in a female space committing crimes against a female, you're talking about a criminal, not a trans person or people. If we're talking about crime and criminals, let's make it about criminals and crimes. The reason this gonna be a hot button discussion that goes motherfucking left every time we come together communally to speak on it is when we continue to commit to conflating the concern for crime with the concern for the people. When we continue to make the people the criminals. When we act like one trans person committing a crime speaks for all trans people. When we act like one crime committed by a heterosexual person is an entire indictment against heterosexual people. So no wonder trans people get fucking gaslit and feel away and feel disrespected when these conversations get had the way that they being had. Because as much as this is being presented as legislation that's for their best interests as well, it's not. It's full of shit. It's prejudice at heart. It's for the sake of making dominant society feel better by getting trans people to fucking pussy pop and tap dance and assimilate and become more palatable just so that they can be treated decently in the spaces they occupy. These laws are really about expecting them to be criminal and finding ways to criminalize them for being who they are rather than what they do. Because if your birth certificate don't reflect that and your genitals don't reflect this, then you, my friend, are breaking the law. Well, how dare you? Not also to mention the lack of nuance and all of that, because all trans people don't want to chop off their genitals. All trans people can't afford the surgeries that come with assimilating or having passability. And just all out do not desire that altogether. No more than all women who can grow, all females who can grow a mustache feel the need to constantly shave off their beard. Females who suffer from that facial hair condition sometimes just go ahead and embrace their beard and their mustache. And have the audacity to expect to be respected when they step out of their doors and into the streets of this country. And what you don't get to do is take away any of that femininity and any of that humanity from the women who choose to embrace the beards they naturally can grow. Because of the costs, because of the expenses, and because of the possible damage that shaving may actually do to their fucking face. And I'm sure that when they think about who the fuck are they doing that for? Am I really doing that for me? Am I really cutting and shaving and constantly managing my facial hair for my sake? Or am I managing this shit so that I can actually be treated decently by people who otherwise would use me being a full-fledged female with a beard as a justification to hurt and harm me emotionally and or physically? And once again, nobody should have to live that way. And people shouldn't have to pussy pop just to be treated like people and to have a dignified lived experience, regardless of what they want to look like, regardless of what pronouns they want to use, regardless of how they arrange their clothes, regardless. Us as black and brown people don't want to go through it. Women don't even want to have to fucking look like women if they don't want to. Females want to have the luxury of shaving all their damn hair off. Some females have a tomboy style. Some women ain't into looking dainty and hyper feminine and shouldn't have to. If we're going to be putting people in jail, if we're going to be sentencing people, if we're going to be giving people citations and criminal arrest records, then we should be doing that based upon people actually committing objective criminal offenses and not having people tied up in the criminal justice system because of who they are. That is an act of injustice. That is an atrocity. That is tyranny. That is a dehumanizing, ungodly, unvirtuous, demonic system. And ain't no justice in sight, baby. What's going on? This beach is better. It's just like that, Cortex. One black person commits a crime, it's seen that all black people commit the crimes. But that's what the system does, right? Trayvon Martin is an unfortunate receipt regarding how respectability politics, it don't save us, and respectability politics ain't even about us. It's about the dominant society. This black boy was not afforded to make it home safely because he dressed in a way that raised the concerns of a non-black person and was ultimately unalived as a result of not assimilating. That's really what the Trayvon Martin homicide boils down to, is that you have a black male who was executed because he did not assimilate, because he wasn't palatable. Therefore, he was deserving of being policed, of being shackled, and ultimately being executed. And here it is, dominant society of the black and brown community don't want to be policed for wearing a hoodie, but wants to police queer people for wearing a dress or a wig or some rouge on their face, but don't want to be policed for their cornrows. Don't want to be policed because of their sagging pants. Don't want to be policed because of their bandanas. Don't want to be policed because of their door knocker earrings and their gold tooth. Don't want to be policed because of their press-on nails. Don't want to be policed because of their piercings and tattoos. But please police queer people for being in a fucking dress. Please tell me who the fuck I am because I'm in women's attire, or because I'm in male attire as a female, while you want to be afforded a completely dignified existence without question and have full right and autonomy to dress and present and to show up as you so please, as long as it ain't hurting nobody else. But we don't want to afford that same grace and space for queer people. It's the hypocrisy of our democracy for me. It's the hypocrisy of our democracy for me. I didn't even know I had all these damn text messages in my phone. Hold on. I'm gonna drop the link in case anybody want to come up. I just had a few thoughts. I did that it's a little over an hour. That's not too bad. Let me read some of these comments too. Oh shit. Hold on. I put the wrong link in there. I just dropped the StreamYard link in the chat. All right. And I'm gonna read some of the comments. Hi, Intersex. This is Beach says, preach! Hey, CTV, I dropping the link. I have like 30 minutes to 25. I just dropped it if you're still there, Intersex. Hey, Levon's Library, who says, what I want to know is why everybody's so concerned about other people's privates. It's weird and a little gross in the bathroom. Shaking my head. Hey, Mo. Levon also says, a politician made a great point against the people feeling unsafe argument. Trans men and cis women look similar. So if you force two people to go to the bathroom by born gender, a cis man can go into a female. I got all into it, Levon. It's like you run back into a brick wall, you know? What's going on, Zara? I mean, Sarah, Real Talk channel. I have to go, but I'll red ball and catch the rest later. YouTube will have a great Saturday. What's going on? Question. Good morning. Thank you for this live. It's very important. I remember my friend was nervous to use the bathroom when she first decided to transition, and I used to go to the bathroom with her to ensure she wasn't trouble. And oh, that was so sweet of you, Sarah. Thank you for protecting. Thank you for looking out for your trans sister, and I hope she has equally looked out for you in this space as well. The people pushing these laws are majority white evangelical men. Oh my God, with their Beckies in tow. It's fear mongering as usual by hate groups, the same proportional amount of criminals in the trans as cis population is ludicrous. I have personally come across predatory people in bathrooms and not one was trans. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Ray says it's meant to be discriminatory. That part. Why do people think trans B people need to be perverts and predators? Isn't it more likely they just need to use the bathroom? Toilet pervs existed always. They don't become trans. Right? Like peeping toms have been heterosexual men for the longest. Peeping toms, like pervs are pervs. And what we keep fucking around and doing is gaslighting the shit out of the LGBT community by really ultimately making the pervs LGBT people themselves. And that's where it gets hot and it gets cringy and it gets tight and it gets confrontational and it gets argumentative and it gets all of these things. Trust me, they do understand they're playing ignorant games. I believe it. Yeah, I've seen this coming for years. I'm in a red state. It's a mess. I need to be quiet because I'm ashamed of my government, says Sharon. No, it passes here already. They just don't have the implementation ready. School administrations are worried. They passed and now looking at each other. I'm frustrated as fuck. Not my state, sis. They're just now forming task forces to study implementation. The ones that pass these laws aren't smart enough to understand that they have to be implemented by some damn body. All right. Stuff like this is why voting, absolutely, especially your local voting. My God. Y'all better get to your local voting polls, baby. Your state governors, your senates, state politicians are crucial. Okay, they're the ones making the direct decisions around the design of your local matrix. Okay, they're the ones right up close and home on your shit. They're the ones on your ass. Let me say, hey Nakia, good morning. Hey Ashley, hey CTV, just waking up and seeing you as live. And Kala, happy Saturday, happy Saturday. So I just wanted to come through and chitter chat a little bit. I was still thinking about the whole trans stuff, and just like, what's really going wrong in this dialogue, So I end this with saying we need to humanize all people in this system. Females, trans folk, queer folk, black folk, etc. Minority folk really need to band together and stand together. I really want female community to also do because it is going to take doing the work emotionally to realize that there is some projection that's going on and that the female community is projecting the ills and the fears caused by their male counterparts onto trans women. And that is contributing to the tension and the distrust of trans women in female spaces is females' community issue with men's community and living in a man's world, which has been a very rough one for females. So I understand the projection, but it is a projection. And it's not trans women who are bringing harm per se. But trans women are having to live with the stigma of being biologically male at birth. And what can really help with that is trans women and biological women's community being in a relationship, working on a relationship. That means actually getting to know one another, biological women actually getting to know trans women and vice versa, getting familiar with the community, getting familiar with each other. This is what humanizes people, you know, integration can help achieve that. Association and integration. When you get to finally build with people and sit down with people and get into a relationship with people, it can help to scathe off a lot of this shit. And you know what's so funny about what I'm saying is that when you come to the internet, you'll hear all this bullshit about a gay agenda, a conversion agenda, a feminization agenda, but then at the same time, you'll hear heterosexual people, you'll hear biological folk literally say, but I don't know one gay person myself who's actually pushing the gay agenda. Is your gay brother pushing the gay agenda? No. Is your transgender cousin pushing the trans agenda? No. But yet, people will hail this bullshit about an agenda, but don't know one LGBT person personally who is perpetuating said fucking agenda. I want to welcome Intersex to the chat. Hi, Intersex. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Got like 14 minutes.
Okay.
Can you
Talk
still
to me
hear me?
about it.
Because I got my I have my headphones on because I'm at work.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, how are you? How you been? I hope everything
I
is
am
great.
awesome. Happy 2024.
Okay. Happy 2024. So all I have to say is, well, you have made a lot of great points, some things that I wouldn't even think about. Also, I mean, I think the real issue is, and I'd be afraid to say, is a lot of, women of trans experience transitioning. And I was trying to Google how many states that you could change your birth certificate and identification and stuff like that. It says 50, but I don't know if that's true. But
Okay.
just like a lot of them are pretty much lazy in the situation. I'm sorry, I have to say it's women of trans experience has been the women of trans experience for 50 years and still haven't got identification change and knowing that they could get it changed for free. So yes, I agree with everything you're saying, but um I don't know, I feel like they make it hard for um women of trans experience as well. Like, for example, I'm gonna try to whisper because I'm at work. So it's two young trans women at my job, and um, it's actually altogether I think three, but I do see other ones in like other departments and stuff. But of course, the ones who legally changed their name, legally got F on everything, are treated different than the other ones. But the company I work for is very LGBT confirming. I do think that is pushed depending on the color of your skin. But they haven't got their name changed, but they got their name changed on everything and on that thing because the job, did it for them, but they legally didn't get it changed. So, when I see how they be treated in the work department, of course, I'm just working. I'll be trying to mind my business. I'm not trying to get into any of the situation because I know it never ends well with me. But yeah, I be hearing like one of them, she's out and she's having surgery. So one of the supervisors rumored that she was having bottom surgery, but this is a woman of trans experience in her beginning transition. So they were having conversations. Should she be getting bottom surgery when she still have a beard? But the whole time she was out for heart surgery. So that's just like the nasty stuff that
Mm.
the community have to deal with. Um, and I was gonna come in here up here and say stuff about passability, but you touched
Mhm.
on that because women who are passable are not going to have that issue.
Right.
Um, so I can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So how you doing? Good morning. So do you think that because I know you had a conversation about this before, do you think that someone who doesn't medically transition is trans?
Absolutely. Like trance is a state of it's a state of consciousness, a state of mind. It's not a body phenomenon. It's a consciousness phenomenon first. So hell yeah. A trans
Okay.
person is a trans person, even if they have not even if they don't dress
Mm-hmm.
aesthetically and or have had any surgery that correlates to the gender
Mm-hmm.
in which yeah. hmm Still a trans person. Absolutely.
So is it bad for me? Is it horrible for me to disagree to that?
No, I mean no, no, no. It's not. It's not horrible. But like? I mean, so unpack that a little bit. Like, what makes you see it from the way you see it?
Um. Okay. So now my time has decreased. So I'm gonna try
Okay.
to I'm gonna try to whisper.
Okay. This is so funny.
But I feel like now of course, in the beginning, in
Mhm.
your beginning stages, yeah, that's one thing. But I feel like if that's a true statement and that's how you feel or whatever, don't you wanna, work on looking in the mirror and feeling comfortable with that? Like, don't you wanna how you feel how you feel in the inside, don't you wanna eventually see that in the outside? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think that I think that that's something we expect because that's largely what we bear witness to in society is we watch people show up as what they feel like. We like if somebody is a ballerina, we then expect them, to show up as a ballerina. If they say that they're a fairy, our expectation is that they're going to present as a fairy. But my question to you is, because all trans women and trans men, and men and women of the trans experience, etc., it all began internally before they even begin to maybe make any steps toward assimilating. Would you say that? I mean, you kind of said that everybody in the beginning, of course that's the case. But
Hmm.
since that is the case, doesn't that mean that would still be the case even for those who like just stayed there in that place? Like, I know I'm trans in my heart. I know that I know who I am because I was also watching. I don't know if you watched the YouTube channel, it, Jubilee, but they have like these like hardcore debates all the
Hmm.
time, and you had like a trans woman. She was in conflict with this non-binary individual, and the non-binary individual was like saying, "I have a right to be here and to be a part of this discussion about." Like trans rights and trans visibility because non-binary people fall under the trans umbrella, and the trans woman did not agree with that. She was just like, "Y'all actually shouldn't fall under the trans category. It actually complicates things for trans women, etc."
I
But
agree.
what's interesting about that
Hmm.
is like because this is what, okay, so help me out here, because this is the thing, right? So you got biological women who also be like, they sometimes identify as like non-binary or gender fluid. Like they may show up majority or present majority as female while always feeling so-called like male or masculine. Because my thing is like, aesthetic doesn't define, like it doesn't, like it helps us in this like rigid system to quantify people's gender expression and truth, but it's not the truth in and of itself. So even if I never, it's almost like if I never act gay, that doesn't mean I'm not gay. Just because I don't show up in the expectations of whatever it is that's thought of as being gay. Like, you know, so when we get into like quantifying it that way, can we truly quantify somebody's trans? I mean, we try to by saying, hey, you got to pass. If you're trans, you need to dress according to your gender. You need to have a gender expression accordingly. But we also know that non-binary people exist. We also know that people are very fluid in their gender expression. We know that it's the spectrum existence is very complicated. So I don't know, you know, I think that there are probably a lot of trans people. Matter of fact, I was just watching something like a year ago where it was following like the lives of trans people who they don't show up as trans, but they identify as trans, and they're comfortable. They really, you know, like the transness is for them, and they don't feel compelled to
I
show
guess
up.
I'm very ignorant on the topic, I guess, because I understand everything you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess I never digged and looked at it in another lens. But so for example, all right, so example, a person that doesn't medically, transition, and they're they're trans, and they're a tomboy, and they haven't had no surgery, they haven't medically. I feel like that's when it becomes an issue, when it becomes the bathroom thing, because it's like you haven't changed anything about yourself, outside wise. Mentally, you're a woman, right? But how I don't know. I guess that means people just mind their business, because it's like if you go in there and you know your look is not feminine at all, but you a woman. I mean, I don't
And
know.
that's
I
the
get so
issue
confused.
that we're
Yeah,
going to crash into, because you got women who have all type of gender
yeah.
expression. And so like, how do we feel about the female who has a masculine gender expression? She still identifies as female. She don't identify as trans. She don't identify as lesbian, but she completely presents masculine. Like, what if she then was forced in this rigid system because of the way she looks? Well, then you got to go be in men's spaces, and you got to go in a man's bathroom, even though you identify as a woman and you use her, she pronouns. But because you present in your gender expression that's masculine, those things are
Oh wow.
confusing to the outward world. So the outward world is going to be like, well, I'm going to treat you based upon what you look like, not what you feel or not what you identify as. Would that be fair for this system to then force a woman who identifies as a woman and who uses she and her but presents in a masculine fashion into masculine spaces against her will,
Uh,
because how she
yes.
presents,
Yeah, and I
even
actually
though
learned a lot.
that's not how she identifies?
Yeah, you're right. I learned a lot. I feel like when we having these conversations, that people can articulate it like how you do, and you're not even, you're not even trans, or you're not even gender non-conforming, but you're able to. Because I had tried to have conversations with people who identify like that, and it's just like,
Mm.
I don't know. It is what it is. It's
And
like
what
they
they
don't want to
say, like,
explain. I can't explain it. And I'm like, huh? What you mean you can't explain gender nonconforming? And I'll just be like, What you mean? I want to understand it. I want to
Yeah.
respect it. I want you to explain it to me. I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let you talk. Like, just explain it to me. And it's just like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm just like, what? And that happened. I think only one person like really tried to have the
Mhm.
conversation with me and explained it with me, and I understood it. But other than that, it's just like, I don't know. It's just what it is. And it was like, even when I asked questions, every answer was, I don't know. And I was just like, whoa, what
Look, I be telling people all the time, honey, like sometimes
Good morning.
don't even expect the people who are these things to be able to articulate, you
Mm-hmm.
know, what it means, because it is hard because the struggle that a lot of people who exist in these like alternative boxes having an issue with this language and trying to like contextualize this in this binary ass system with this kind of reverse uno ass language that we have is kind of very hard. So a lot of people just know what they are, but you couldn't get them to make it make sense if they had to articulate it. Like articulating it and trying to get you to comprehend it would be a whole feat. But they just know how they feel. They just know who they are, but trying to
Mm-hmm.
find the proper language to illustrate that to someone else is sometimes hard for other people. So it's yeah. So finding people who can actually articulate their existence, that is a strength. But ultimately, you know, and to be honest, and it shouldn't even be necessary, because the reality is, while we all use language and we all have our preferred pronouns and we have our labels, we all are on the damn spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
really. And it really isn't even something that should be a conversation or should have to be a conversation, because it should be the least thing that really matters about us. You know, what really ultimately should be the focal point is what we contribute to our communities, what we contribute to the lives of other people, what we contribute to, you know, the world. It shouldn't be how I identify sexually or how I,
Hello,
or what
Practice.
my gender it is. Like that just should be hard to the point. Hey nosy, hey boo. You know, like that should be hardly the point. But this system is just so, she at work, y'all. So she was damn near about to get fired being up here with being up here with me. So I guess that's an interesting question. How do y'all feel? How do y'all feel about people who identify as trans who have not medically transitioned and who have not aesthetically transitioned? So that means that you have some trans women that are walking around that look just like full on biological males. They have not made any aesthetic or medical transition at all, but they do identify as trans, and vice versa for trans men. You have a lot of trans men who have not transitioned medically or aesthetically, which means that they show up and look just as feminine as a nosy hole looks, as Sin looks, as Ashley looks, as all the ladies here look, but they identify as men. They identify as males, but they also don't feel compelled to get a boob. Um, I forgot what you call the surgery. They don't feel the need to get top surgery. They don't feel the need to get bottom surgery. They don't feel the need to present in male clothing. Then you still, let me see, Jay says, then you still a boy or a girl. So then, Jay, are you saying that clothes and surgeries define the person? Like, I mean, because for you to say that, it means that you are saying that the truth is in the shallow, is in the superficial. the superficial of the presentation, the superficial of the wardrobe, the superficial of the design of the body, and not necessarily in the heart and in the minds and in the spirits of the actual person themselves. I mean, what's another way I can explain the way this looks? Let me think real quick. What's another way I can explain? That would be like, oh, easy. That would be like me identifying as a Christian, right? But yeah, we can use me as an example. I identify as a Christian, but I present like a bastard in terms of my appearance. I am covered in ink. I have 2 sleeves. I have a big ass phoenix chest tattoo. I have piercings all up and down my ears, my nose, my lips, my face. I break all of the aesthetic expectations of what it means to be Christian. You would not be able to quantify my Christianity based upon my appearance any more than you can quantify a person who identifies as trans who does not assimilate medically and does not assimilate aesthetically. Or a heathen too, Mo. That part. Jay says, okay, Intersex says, I'm going to try to sneak back on if you're still on. Okay, Intersex. Jay says, you can't have a peen and feel entitled as a woman. I thought the difference was in the genitals. I'd say believe in God, but not Christian. Yeah, so it's not in genitals because here's the gag. Like, here's another thing we don't consider, right? We as a society make it so much about, oh, the genitals. Here's the gag. How many of us are ever even going to know who has had surgery or not? So then, as a society, we're still largely taking people at face value. So anybody can claim to have bottom surgery. Not that it's any of our business, and it doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. But it's not like we're going to have the luxury of knowing to begin with. So what is the point of us even focusing on people's genitals who we don't have to see, people's genitals who we don't want to see, people's genitals that are not a part of our lives in any kind of way. So what is the point of even reducing it to genitals? How are we going to reduce people to genitals that they don't have to share with anybody and that we never know they do or don't have to begin with? You know what I think we really have a big issue with as a society? Is control. I think we get to see how narcissistically entitled and controlling and that we are. And I think it's reflected all up in the way this society treats and feels about queer people and trans people. Because if we weren't a controlling society and we weren't a entitled society, we wouldn't have no resistance toward other people's freedom and liberty. and full-on autonomy. Like, instead, all of our attitude in this system would be, live your best fucking life. Yeah, goddamn, go do you. You can do what you want to do. You can be what you want to be. And it's funny how we are compartmentalized about that attitude, and we tell people that in the context of what they can do occupationally. Oh, you can be anything. You can be the president. You can be the next NASA astronaut. You could be the world's next greatest hip hop artist. You could be the world's next great musician and fashion designer. We so interestingly are compartmentalized about that. But we eventually put a period on that sentence instead of maintaining the comma. If we were actually free and we weren't a narcissistically entitled, controlling collective, we would be putting that comma and keeping that sentence open-ended and encouraging and expecting people to go out and be whomever they want to be. Because it ain't nothing but space and opportunity, baby. You free. You free, baby. You free to do what you want to do. You want to change your hair. You want to augment your body. You want to live here. You want to spend your money there. You want to marry him, her, or them. It's your world, baby. Do what you want to do. But because we're not a free society and we only delegate and designate freedom in certain instances, we police the fuck out of folk and try to control the fuck out of folk and try to tell folk who the fuck and what the fuck they can't do and who the fuck they can't be. Motherfuckers don't want to be told who to love, so you went and fought legislation to marry interracially, but you want to tell people that they can't be in a dress who want to be in a dress. Jay says, not saying I want to see them. I'm just saying you can't make your beliefs everyone else's reality. I'm done. LOL. And those wondering, I'm a gay man and I'm confused. Please educate me. Come up here, Jay. Hit the link. Hit the link in that link. I just dropped the link. Come up here and engage it. Because it's okay to be confused. You know, once again, a big part of the problem has been, you know, a lot of people just have not been afforded an education because we haven't had to have these conversations. We haven't had to unpack these things. So it's okay if you don't know things. It's okay if it's confusing to you, because once again, you know, these are fairly new conversations over the last, you know, decade or so. Where we're now having conversations around gender. Now, these are hardly new subjects. You know, it's not a new curriculum at all in higher academic institutions and in upper echelon spaces. You know, there are whole dissertations, you know, about gender and gender expression, especially amongst like the sexology community and academia. You know, these are real areas of studies and have been for eons, for centuries, all across the continentals, you know. But because trans people are very visible, intersex people, non-binary folk are very, very, very visible in our system. Now, you know, all of that language and all of these very complex understandings of orientation and gender are bleeding down into everyday lives and everyday conversations. And it is a deep thing because it is complicated. It's not binary. It's not black and white like the church taught us and like our parents taught us and like so many generations went on treating the topic. Oh, there's boy, there's girl, there's male, there's female, there's gay, and there's straight. And hell, that gay shit is wrong too. So really there's just straight, you know? And it's been branded that way. So, you know, the seams are becoming undone, the bubble is bursting, and, you know, we know it's not that way. It's not that way at all. Not even a little bit. What's going on, Star? Let me see what Michelle said up here. Let me scroll on up, chat. Is that a trans person? Which person are you talking about, Michelle? I'm not sure who you're speaking of, boo. Let me see. Ray says, my thoughts are that people are almost always judged on appearance, versus gender identity. It's none of my business to have an opinion one way or another about their choice. Okay, Mo Brown says, they don't have to show you what you want. Present as you please. Child, I don't nose the whole wide open, honey, at 6 a.m. What is you even doing up, nosy? Ashley says, I have a question because I really don't know. Is the trans people fully transitioned, or is it for anybody who identifies as the opposite sex can use the bathroom? Yeah, the legislation that's being passed in these red states pretty much are trying to say that trans people can use the bathrooms assigned that they are aligned with, but only the trans people who have changed their sex on their birth certificate, and only the trans people who have medically transitioned can occupy those restrooms. Outside of those guidelines, it is a criminal offense. And there is major pushback as a result of that legislation. It lacks nuance and it's discriminatory at heart. Michelle says, I think that this is driven by all the negative stereotypes about gender groups that compel people out of fear to overreact to those with all types of differences from themselves. I was referring to those who chose to keep both sets of genitals. Are you talking about intersex people who are born with both organs, male and female organs, who decide to keep their organs? Because there are intersex people who live as a non-binary people as a result of or gender fluid people as a result of, you know, their literal biological reality. Because I'm gonna tell you how I see the trans, intersex, cisgendered world. Biological male and females and intersex people are biologically masc, femme, and androgynous. So those who are born in male body are born with masculine form. Those born in female bodies, born in a feminine form. And those born intersex are born in a androgynous form, which is just a marriage between the feminine and the masc. Now, these feminine masc and androgynous concepts also exist and consciousness and spirit as well, which is why if you look at all religious and spiritual systems, the deities are all marked off, as masc, femme, intersex, and or androgynous. So we know that masc and femme and androgyny not only has a physical representation, which can be the biological body, the male body, the female body, the intersex body, but masc, femme, and intersexness, aka androgyny, exists also psychologically and spiritually, which to me is where trans people come at. Trans people don't have the hardware, but they have the software. They have the spirit and the consciousness of said gender. Trans women, feminine consciousness, trans men, masculine consciousness, gender fluid individuals, androgynous consciousness. And what's interesting to me about non-binary people, non-gender conforming people, is I think these are the people who exist or represent the spiritual state, which is neither male nor female. Kind of a transcendence of both feminine, masculine, and androgyny, and just exists beyond those concepts, which I think are immortal but not eternal concepts to begin with. Trans people to me just represent a full-on spiritual state. Like non-binary, non-gender conforming people to me just exist as spirits. They don't feel neither connected to masculine or feminine. Neither one quite fits. And to their credit, masc and femme, androgyny, etc., these are all human constructs and concepts. Non-gender, non-binary folk can be considered gender neutral. Neither have achieved kind of the great I am. So to me, all this shit is spiritual. It's spiritual. Trans are individuals who have the masculine and feminine software, but not the hardware. Biological men and women and intersex people are the people who have the masc, the femme, and the androgynous hardware. And all of this stuff is interchangeable. Trans people who have the software can upgrade their hardware, aka through the cosmetic surgeries, aka through the aesthetics. People who are born with the hardware can be of any state of consciousness. You have female bodies that have male software. You have male bodies that have female software. And then you have intersex bodies, which can have any combination of consciousness thereof. And that's why they call it a mental disorder, because it's easy for lazy intellectuals and it's easy for like materialist and, simple-minded folk to just classify it as a mental disorder because it doesn't fit within a conventional existing frame of work at that time. But just because you call something a mental disorder doesn't really mean it is a mental disorder per se. What it is us not always understanding things as we experience them, and that causing disorder in our perception of things. And so shit we don't understand, we fear, and we throw away, and we call it evil, or we call it weird, or we call it whatever we have to call it to justify not having to understand and not having to figure it out. But there's really nothing disorder about it, because when you study human history, you will find non-binary, non-gender conforming, trans folk, intersex folk, are as old as heterosexual folk. I mean, we've been around and been on the planet as long as everybody else has been. That's why you can read about queer folk in your Bibles, and you can read about them in spiritual literatures. You can read about them all up and through pre-colonized Africa. I mean, it's a concept that's as old as time, and we're not the only society to rendezvous with. The Native Americans had a third gender category to accommodate its trans and intersex community. So, the Mexicans have a third gender category to accommodate their trans community. We're not the only system, the only nation that has had to deal with the transgender thing, but it is a complex thing, and we should expect it to be a complex thing. I think the only people, I think some of our educators, they get stomped because they just don't want to do the work. They're just being intellectually lazy, which then forces them to be intellectually dishonest. And then they go and do the easy work by just casting it off as, oh, it's just a disorder. And, you just move it along. But no, it has a framework, and it's perfectly understandable. And this is, and I'm going to tell you why I just why for me, this is a complete natural, it's not only a spiritual phenomenon at work in humanity, because we have intersex animals, insects, intersex fish, aquatic life, etc. We see this out in nature. It's also not a purely human phenomenon. Like, humans did not invent transgenderness. Humans did not invent intersexism. These are realities that exist amongst the natural world as well. You have fishes. You have some species of fish that literally can switch out their biology. Female fish that can take on male biology and transform into male fish and actually reproduce with the other female fish in the colony if there is a disproportion as it relates to male fish to female fish. If there are more fish in the school, then they can literally balance out their community by becoming males. They can impregnate the females after converting into male form. If there are more male fish in the school than there are female, to balance that out, the male fish can transform into female fish and literally have a womb, reproduce, give birth, be impregnated. So what we see happening amongst humanity is something that's reflected amongst Mother Nature. And if you let the ignorant buffoons of the earth, if you let them tell it, this is a mental disorder, and it's like, bitch, no, it's not. This is universal. And anything that is demonstrated in nature is demonstrated amongst humanity in one way, shape, or form. We will either represent it biologically, we are represented culturally, we are represented aesthetically, but it'll be represented in us somewhere, some way, shape, or form. Man is a sum total of all of the universe. So all of the universe is in man, and man is in all of the universe. And anything that exists out there exists in here with us. Whether it bleeds through our art, our mannerisms, our wardrobe, once again, our biology, etc., sexuality and gender identity and gender expression has been complex from the start, and it's designed to be complex. You know, this is the depth of the divine and the divine mind at work in all of its complexities. You know, we even see the masculine feminine thing represented in the Christian text. It's so funny to me, you know, how simple earthlings make male and female, you know, about the literal biology. That's hardly what the scriptures are talking about when it's talking about marriage between man and woman. You know, it literally says when man and woman come together, they become one in holy matrimony. They become one in spirit. It's just talking about the spiritual union of the masculine mind and the feminine mind, which is represented once again throughout all of creation, throughout all of human beings. A lot of people think that homosexual or same gender loving relationships are void of balance. They're not, which is why you have a top, you have a bottom, you have a stud, and you have a lipstick lesbian, you have a femme. You still see the masculine femme balance even in same gender loving relationships. Whether it's the role that one person is playing sexually, there's a giver and there's a taker. You see it still in their relationship dynamics. Even if it looks like it's two femmes, there's still the balance of those energies at work, because those energies of masculine femme may not be represented aesthetically. So it can still be two femmes, but it doesn't mean that their relationship is all feminine energy, because nothing is. All things are in harmony. We just have short thinking and perception, and we reduce shit to these shallow metrics without considering all these variables. Like, I have same gender loving couples in my life where it looks like both the male partners are very feminine individuals. And they are in their mannerisms, they are in their style of dress, but there still is a top and there's a bottom, or there's a versatility. So that's where you also see the give and take of the masculine energy, but you still see that masculine energy manifest. You see that feminine energy manifest. Same thing with two femmes in a relationship. Both of them may be effeminate, where they makeup, their cosmetics, etc. And yet their gender, not their gender, but their relational dynamics may reflect masc and femme. Like, you may have one of the femmes who carries the child to term, which is considered to be a very feminine act, you know, and or you may see the masc and femme dynamic play out in the bedroom sexually. You may see it in the gender roles that they align with in the relationship. One femme may be the breadwinner, the other femme may, you know, have a much more domesticated lifestyle and given much more domestic chores, but you always see it. It's always there. It's always there. It's always there. Just like in a heterosexual relationship, you see the literal masc and femme dynamic in the male and the woman, you know, in the man and the damn woman. It's everywhere. There is no escaping it. Even in same gender loving relationships, you know, kind of forgot how we got into all of that, but you know, so I was going to say that this is not a confusing thing to me because not only is it spiritual and I can understand it spiritually, but I think it's really weird that literally every single human being is a byproduct of their mothers and their fathers coming together to create us. You literally are androgynous biologically yourself. We just don't speak about male biology and female biology with that language, but literally you have the DNA of both your mother and your father. You have physical traits of both your mother and your father. You have sons who clearly look like their mother. Boy, you look just like your mama. You may have a nose, you may have her lips, you may have her hips and her ass. You have girls who clearly look like their father. Girl, you look just like your daddy. She may have his lips, she may have his eyes, she may have his eyebrows, she may have his forehead, etc. You're literally born in the image of masculine and feminine forces, masculine and feminine metaphysical forces, and masculine and feminine biological forces. And so for us to think that it's bizarre or it's some far out that people identify as women, or that like a male can identify as woman, sure he can. That biological male has woman in him. I mean, we can't act like we can begin to understand what the feminine genetics that he literally inherited from his mother are communicating to his brain. Just like we can't, in the case of a trans woman, we can't begin to act like we can truly understand what the testosterone in her is communicating to her brain. You literally have masculine and feminine, male and female forces, male and female hormones, like men also have estrogen. Women have testosterone. Men have typically more testosterone, and women typically have more estrogen than men, but we all have those things moving through us. As a male, you have your mother moving through you just as much as you have your father moving through you. So I'm not shocked when we live in a society and there are men who feel like women and there are women who feel like men. Those forces are in you. And if some of us feel more feminine or more masculine or feel equally like both, I mean, for me, all of that's reasonable because we all come from both of those forces. We all come from a dad. We all come from a mother. We all come from a papa. We all come from a mama. So if these forces are moving through us biologically, they're moving through us metaphysically. Those forces are shaping our consciousness. They're shaping our perceptions. They're shaping our understanding of ourselves. I just think that it's clearly a deeper issue than what we give credit for. And I think it's scientific in nature. I think it's biological. I think it's metaphysical. I think it's all of those things. And I think we just don't give the trans, non-binary, intersex reality the credit that is truly due. And I think it is complex, but it's also way less complex than what we make it out to be, because I just have not struggled with this subject at all. It's interesting to me that there's a big struggle, but I kind of understand it as an American, because once again, we've just been deaf, dumb, and stupid on the issue. We just never been taught it. And so it just feels like we're learning fucking quantum theory. You know, it feels that much to a lot of people. But it just is because we've just been so far removed from dealing with the subject in this nuanced fashion. But it's really not. Even if you just look at some common sense things in your world. Like, look, shit. Everybody got a mama and a dad, hell. So yeah, if a girl feels like a dude, that's not shocking to me. She comes from a damn dude. If a dude feels like a damn her, I'm not shocked. He comes from a damn her. Like I don't, and so none of us are in other people. We're only in ourselves. We can only experience ourselves. I don't know how somebody else's biological makeup and how those forces are communicating to them and what they're communicating to them and the way that other people's inner self is being framed around. Most of I got fat fingers make complete sense. I show my emotions in male form 75% of the time. My guy can deal because his compassion and understanding has a strong feminine backing from his mom. See, that's the fem and mass working, interchangeably in most relationship, in a heterosexual relationship, where her man has very strong supporting feminine characteristics, and she has, some strong supporting masculine characteristics, and those things add, they add to the balance. It's just the way that it is, the energy swap, as Mo just illustrated in heterosexual relationships too, where you may have a softer man or you may have a more compassionate and emotionally available man, and you have a more left brain woman. Like, all of these dynamics are a reality. You got men who stay at home dads, and you got the woman who the damn breadwinner. All right, Ray, have a good day, boo. High Priestess says LGBT community is confused. It seemed that you ain't so high after all, baby. Heterosexual community seems to be pretty deaf, dumb, and stupid. It needs to pick up a damn book. Okay, it's clear that a lot of my heterosexual peers, that y'all have not picked up a book. Y'all need to go take a sexology course. Y'all need to go to somebody's university and let these professors, teach all about curriculum that's been in effect for over a damn century. Okay. And stop being ignorant buffoons. All right. Because, people are going to be who they are because that's easy, but when you live in a world where people think you need to explain who you are to them, that's when people can get off with saying stupid shit like, you're confused. No, bitch, I'm clear about who the fuck I am. I know I like dick. I know I like ass. Or if I'm a lesbian, I know I like pussy. Okay? Or if I'm a biological male who feels like a woman, I'm clear about that. Or if I'm a biological female who feels like a male, I'm clear about that. Now, having to explain it to you, who is irrelevant, is where it can get confusing at. Since you nosy enough to believe that you need to understand who the fuck I am for me to do what I do. That's what confusing at. Just like the down low community, down low men and women, them people ain't fucking confused. They know exactly what they like, which is why they on the down low sucking dick, on the down low sucking titties, on the down low sucking pussy. They only confused because y'all got their ass confused, because y'all want there to be only one sexuality or one gender expression. So niggas got to get dressed up in their girlfriend's dresses at night when nobody is looking and the house is clear. Because the world around these interesting and unique people are controlling, and once again, narcissistically abusive and simple-minded as hell. And simple-minded as people will find any type of intellectual sparring or any opportunity to have to actually think. A simple bitch will struggle with. A simple bitch will end up confused real fast. Because a simple bitch don't use their minds. A simple bitch don't use their brains. A simple bitch education ends at a junior high, ends at a senior high school level, baby. Okay? Don't ask our brain to do nothing else, baby. Okay? Don't go building no new roads. Don't go clearing out no land for a new condominium. Don't go expanding the roads, baby. A simple bitch don't like no new roads, honey. A simple bitch don't like no new towns, baby. A simple bitch don't like no renovation shy. A simple bitch can't do it. A simple bitch can't handle that thing. I started listening and fell back to sleep before it really started, and now I'm back. Hey, Queen people. Hey, B-boy, child. So I just wanted to come and just trip with y'all, child. Yes, you got to use your brain. Yes, society is not for the faint of heart. And being a human being in a very complex world full of atoms and neurons and protons and quantum entanglements, and complex biology and deep intersectional culture. Yeah, it's the world is not for the dummies. Okay, sometimes some things are going to be 1 + 1, and then sometimes some things are going to be, what's that equation? Let me see. E = mc². Okay? Sometimes it's going to be 1 + 1, and then sometimes it's going to be E = mc². Sometimes it's going to be 4 + 4. Sometimes you only got to add and subtract, multiply and divide. And sometimes, baby, it's going to get calculus level, because this levels to this enlightenment shit. It's levels to this educational shit. Okay? All things to know in the world do not exist on a hooked on phonics level. All things there is cannot be understood from a basic bitch's mentality. Yes, you're gonna have to put on your little propeller hat. You're gonna have to put on your tinfoil hat. You're gonna actually have to fucking think. You're gonna actually have to fucking intellect. You're gonna have to actually, move that fucking organ. You're gonna have to arouse it. Yeah, that gotta happen. Mm-hmm. Okay, some things are rated PG-13 and other things are rated fucking R. Sorry, the world doesn't accommodate just the dummies. Okay, if you want to be a dummy, you can be a dummy. And you can make being a dummy work for you and get all that you can get out of being a dummy. Okay? And if you are a higher up, then you can go as far up as you desire to go, because it's all going to depend on your capacity to learn. It's going to be, deeply upon your capacity to learn and to know thyself, to know thy world, and you get to decide what your capacity is. Everybody can't handle the deep shit, baby. It ain't for the faint of heart, honey. Some people prefer their bubbles. They prefer their spiritual bubbles. They prefer their religious bubbles. They prefer their social bubbles, honey. They don't want to deviate. They don't want to scribble outside the lines, and they ain't got to. Ain't no gun today to nobody's head. But just don't put a gun to nobody else's head, baby, okay? You stay with Barney and friends, and then leave those who can dwell with the scholars to the scholars. Leave those who can contend with the historians with the damn historians. Okay, if you can't get past 1 + 1, that's cool. Just get the fuck out the way of those who on their trigonometry shit. Okay? You and Barney and them, y'all stay down there. You don't need to be over here. Well, we intellectualizing it, baby. Okay? A lot of people can't take it, you know? And like I said, honey, knowledge, it ain't for the faint of heart, because knowledge will cause you to burst your bubble again and again and again and again and again. And enlightenment is not a destination, it's a journey. It's the willingness to burst your bubble over and over and over and over and over again. So shout out to the truth seekers and shout out to those who are here to evolve and learn and to not get to live within their biases and are always willing to challenge their knowingness and willing to challenge where they are and willing to challenge the information that was given to them generationally, and who just always does the work to accommodate the incoming data, because things change. Just like this generation statistically is smarter. This is the smartest generation of all fucking generations, thanks to technology. These young kids now can speak in several languages when their parents can barely speak proper English. Times are changing. Knowledge is infinite. Put me in front of the class. That part, Jay. Hey, Sherry. Good morning, CTV. We'll have to do the replay. Oh, yes, this is a good topic, and I'm sure that, oh, yes, baby. Got a lot of people up in arms, child. Thanks to technology, this generation in America goes straight to Google. Queen B More says, but I just mean I don't like a lot of people around me. That's all. I'm the same way, child. Stingy, child. Just stuck up as hell, Queen B More. Anybody else trying to get their old folk off mainstream news is a fight. Baby, them folk, they love their local news, child. They love their CNN and their ESP. That's all my grandma be having playing. It's a damn Christian network and the damn news. I can't believe that these kids seem way less smart than well, they are more smart, but what you are really identifying, Queen B More, is they are less wise. They're smarter than previous generations, but they are lacking the wisdom. And that's why they seem like smart dummies, if you will. Intelligent dummies. Because it's the wisdom that's lacking. But they are book smart. They are more academically acute than their parents and their parents. And it's a brilliant thing, but they are weaker in spirit. All right, let me get out of here, you guys. It is 6. I'm going to take me a shower. I'm going to try to get the FedEx and ship some of this shit off, get my day started and out of the way. I'll probably come back and get into some more things. Replay gang. Definitely catch the replay. I love you all. If you enjoyed yourself, hit that PayPal and Cash App. The handles are in the description box below. And scrolling in the screen below. Shout out to you guys. And please have a safe weekend. Please tell a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend about the platform. And I will see y'all later. Bye.